Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Florida State, Florida Gators roster battle, going position group by position group, stacking these two programs. Dill, these roster battles have been an absolute blast to do, really just purely evaluating the depth chart and talent of both of these programs. Obviously, the game's going to get played out in the fall, but sitting here early May, it's kind of fun to talk about how these two teams stack up from a talent standpoint. What makes the roster battles great? You guys getting involved in the comment section, whether you agree, whether you disagree with the fellas, calling us names, let it fly in the comment section. Let it fly with the opposing fan bases. That is what college football is about. We've been having a blast chopping it up with you guys in the comment section. Of course, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And Dill, let's get this one started. Let's start with the quarterback position. And I could already feel the hate in the comment, not the hate in the comment section, the emotion in the comments section. I'm going to put you on the hot seat first. Graham Mertz, DJU, who are you taking here?
Yeah, I'm going Graham Mertz. I just think Graham Mertz, given like a very tough hand he was dealt last year with the offensive line play and some inexperience at the wideout spot, I thought he had an excellent season. So efficient, didn't make a ton of mistakes. And again, to me, I'll be honest, I was a preseason hater. I was like,
Yes,
Graham Mertz, what is this guy going to do? He's going to be a bridge. Just get me to Lagway. No, he played really well. He played at a level that allowed Florida to, frankly, win more games than they probably would have otherwise. In DJU, on the other hand, I think you're still kind of waiting for more consistency. And again, he really did have a good year, I thought, at Oregon State, but I thought he had a lot of help. They had a really good run game, and it was the Pac-12. So, again, a little different animal in the SEC. DJU, if he really gets that completion percentage up, does a little bit better with being consistently accurate, I mean, his ceiling is far higher than Graham Mertz. I just don't think you've seen that yet.
100. You look at the two quarterbacks in 2023, it's hard not to go with Graham Mertz. I think Graham Mertz was phenomenal in 2023. You talked about completion percentage, one of the highest in the country. What I'm thinking about with Graham Mertz is, what does he look like with a little bit better of an offensive line in that 2024 year? Totally agree with you. For Florida State fans, I know we're going to catch some flack in the comments section. I'm not necessarily arguing with you, because you look at DJU, he's made some steps, made a massive step at Oregon State. And I think a lot of Florida State fans, including like how I look at it, you're probably fired up about what Mike Norvell can do with DJU. But we're sitting here in the beginning of May looking at Mertz, DJU from that 2023 year. Give me Graham Mertz at the quarterback spot. Dill, another one that is it's gonna be flying in the comment section, the wide receiver room. Florida State, the Florida Gators. I'll start off here and put myself on the hot seat. I'm going to go with Florida State. And I think right now in the beginning of May, who's the best wide receiver on the football field when these two teams play? It's probably Eugene Wilson for the Florida Gators. That being said, how I look at this wide receiver room specifically with Florida State is, you got 6, 7, maybe 8 guys that you are really excited about in terms of taking that next step in 2024. Obviously, starting with Malik Benson, but guys like Kentron, maybe Hakeem Williams, Destin Hill. There are so many names that I think have massive upsides. So although you haven't seen that production yet from this Florida State wide receiver room, Dill, I'm going to go Florida State. I know I'm going to catch some flack in the comments section. How are you feeling about this one?
And I'm going Gators. Now, I'm with you. Eugene Wilson, best wide receiver on this field in my mind, most proven, even though he's rather young. But I also feel like you're acting like Florida doesn't have talented guys behind it. I mean, you do have really talented guys who are coming into their second year, Aiden Mazzell and some of those other guys from that year. So,
Andy Jean, the Florida Gator fans will be on you if you don't mention Andy Jean.
I know. I got to mention Andy Jean. But like that class, obviously, that came in, those were a really talented group of guys. So again, to me, I think you're betting on Malik Benson's relatively proven. I think you're pretty comfortable with what he's going to be, but I don't think you really know what else. Frankly, a lot of these were wide receivers from either team. That's why I'm going Florida, because I think they do have the top dog, and I don't think they have talent too. You say Florida State's got talent. Florida's got a lot of talent, just young.
So I'm going to float something out there, and then we'll move on. And I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section on this one. Is there a possibility come November 30th, I believe that's when the game is played, that we're talking about Malik Benson being the best wide receiver on the field? And you all know I love Eugene Wilson, but I think the upside to Malik Benson, a guy that ran a 10.4 coming out of high school, a big body, really good after the catch, didn't really get to put it together at Alabama because Jalen Milroe was slinging the pill over there. I think Malik Benson could really break out, especially with what DJU can do working vertically down the field. I'll just float that one out there. Let's move on to that running back room, Dill. I'll put you on the seat first. Florida State, Florida running back room. Who you got here?
Give me the Noles. Now I love what the Noles have. I think they have a good, solid group of guys who are like more your traditional running backs, run the ball well. Roydell Williams, Keziah Holmes, Lawrence Toafili. But Jaden Lucas is such a difference maker. The way he looked in the spring and kind of what you knew, the way Mike Norvell likes to run his offense with some of those jet sweeps and some of those quick hitters to the outside, he's just so dynamic with that. He's so electric. I think he's what kind of puts me over the edge. I love this Florida State room, and I like Montrell Johnson. He's really good, and frankly, you saw the young guys for Florida play good ball. I just love how it's constructed down in Tallahassee.
I'm going Florida State too. You got five running backs that you feel really good about, but Dill, I think you hit it on the head. Like, you got a lot of balance, right? You have your traditional running backs, Roydell Williams. I know Holmes is a massive fan favorite for Florida State. I'd even go true freshman Cam Davis. You talk about a physical specimen that can step on the field right away and be productive. You feel good about that. But then you have a guy like Lawrence and Jalen Lucas who just fit exactly what Mike Norvell wants to do. And if there's a coach that I trust in the country to unlock a guy like Jalen Lucas, it's going to be Mike Norvell. As Big Ten fans, like, we know what Jalen Lucas can do. You saw some hints of it. If you read the spring practice notes, Jalen Lucas taking this program over by storm during spring practice. Give me Florida State, but Dill, you're right. Like, Florida has some young running backs.
Jaden Bob might be a monster. That spring game made me think, like, ooh, do they have like a guy who might be their running back one who's a true freshman? I don't know. You look really good, but right now I look at Florida State. They're just really deep, really dynamic.
Deeper with a little bit more proven production. You look at the offensive line. I'll go first here, and I'll preface it with, I think the Florida Gators got massively better on the offensive line. There's not a Florida Gator fan listening to this that knows it wasn't a problem last year. It certainly was. Though the more I go back and watch Florida from 2023, the more I kind of realize they had one liability in Damian George at the tackle spot. I think the mere fact that you're moving him to the inside, you have three tackles that you feel kind of good about in Austin Barber, Crenshaw Dixon, and Devin Manuel. I think this Florida offensive line is going to take a massive step in the right direction, but I'm going to go Florida State. And I think a couple things I want to talk about Florida State. One, just a ton of guys that have that returning production, that proven capability on the offensive line. But more importantly, this was a Florida State offensive line that I don't think was healthy all year. They had multiple guys just playing banged up. They were just kind of taping it together and trying to get to the finish line. They did a phenomenal job of doing that. What does this offensive line look like if they can kind of stay a little healthier in 2024? The proven production combined with staying a little bit healthier. Give me the Noles on the offensive line.
Yeah, I'll go with the Noles too. And I think that's such a huge part of like what college football is, especially at that offensive line spot, is when you can keep that continuity and guys get to play together for an extra year, essentially. That's so big. And I do think Florida State's offensive line is not a bunch of road graders. And I think you do want to see them play a little bit more physical so they run the ball a little bit more consistently and steadily. But they do a really good job of opening up those big holes to create those gash plays. And again, that's part of the game.
Like, win ball games.
Again, you want to see them probably cut down on some of those negative runs and some of those runs that are stuffed at the line. If they do that, this is a really good offensive line because they do a good job of picking their guys up, getting hats on the hat, and creating creases as much as they are not like dominant road graders. Moving
to the defensive side of the football, let's start with the defensive line. I'll give you the T-box first. Who you got?
Give me the Gators. And I know you're not going to like this because frankly, to me, I think you're not giving the proper credence to what James Cameron, TJ Searcy, Kelby Collins, what they can be. I love that they got a new defensive line coach. I thought the development last year was horrific. They bring in a new guy. I really like what they're going to do.
Coach Javin's a dude.
You've seen Tulane really develop guys effectively at a high level. So you bring him in. If you get those guys rolling, I love what you have with your starters. I mean, Tyreek Sapp, I think, is wildly underrated. And then Cam Jackson and Caleb Banks, I think, are really underrated defensive tackles.
I think this argument has a lot to do, very similar to how we talked about the wide receiver room. Like, if you see that jump year two between guys like Cameron James, Kelby Collins, you probably feel pretty good about this Florida Gators defensive line. I'll look at Florida State and say, I just love the edge rushers too much. And yes, do I lean Florida potentially on the inside of that defensive line? Because I think they might be a little bit deeper than Florida State. But mean, I'm going to bet on some of these edge rushes. You look at guys like Patrick Payton and Marvin Jones Jr. and say, we could be talking about them being top 100 draft picks in 12 months.
And if I see Darrell Jackson go light it up the first week, that might change everything, because like we haven't really got to see a taste of him yet as Florida State observers, but he looked good in the spring game. You see the talent. I mean, he might be just a monster that people aren't really talking about. If he really does something that might sway me, but again, I think they were a pretty good defensive line last year. They kept a fair amount, added a couple guys in the portal. I like what Florida can be.
You talk about Darrell Jackson Jr., somebody that just looks the part. And again, we haven't seen him in over a year because he was suspended last year at NCAA. Shout out the guys. Dill, another guy I want to quickly shout out, Sione Lalea, coming over from Oregon State. I think he is an absolute monster. A little bit of a different flavor than Patrick Payton and Marvin Jones Jr. in terms of those guys are like the Ferraris. Sione Lalea, kind of like a Mack truck, just going to put offensive tackles right into the lap of the quarterback. I like the different kind of flavors you have at the edge rusher spot. I'm going to go Florida State, but again, you take a look at Cam James, a guy like Kelby Collins, maybe taking that step, TJ Searcy, even LJ McCray. We could be talking about a really good Florida Gators defensive line in 2024. Going to the linebacker spot, to me, this one is kind of a no-brainer for me, and I think a lot of Florida State fans would agree as well. You look at the Florida Gators and you say Shamar James, Pup Howard, Miles Graham, Aiden Childs. You're bringing a guy like Ron Roberts to kind of coach these guys up. I think the ceiling for this Florida Gators linebacker room is so freaking high, especially with Coach Roberts coming in. And give me the Gators in that linebacker room.
Yeah, and I like the Gators too because I love Shamar James. I'm still convinced he's going to be a really high draft pick and a really good college football linebacker. Again, there's a development that needs to be done. I like that they made some changes to the coaching staff. You get him going. I love Grayson Howard. He looked really good at South Carolina when you get to see him. So you got two really good young linebackers. And to me, I look at Florida State, and I love DJ Lundy. I thought he had a really good year last year. But I am kind of looking like who's going to be his running mate. I do think it's going to be Justin Cryer, just my hunch. Blake Nicholson obviously has had moments, and Florida State fans like him. Sean Murphy coming from Bama. But I just don't know that you know who that number 2 is going to be. And for that reason, I'll go the Gators. But again, I mean, I think Justin Cryer is good. I think Lundy's good. If things shake out, they could be a really solid linebacker.
I've been very vocal that like Florida State's depth chart is extremely complete. If there's one question mark I have, it is at that linebacker room. We'll see how it shakes out. Though another no-brainer in my mind going to the secondary, and I'll preface this with saying I think Florida made some really good moves in the portal. Like you look at why that Florida Gators secondary struggled last year, they were just young. You had true freshmen starting at the safety spots for a majority of the year. I love guys like Thornton, Jordan Castell. You look at this Florida State secondary room, and this is coming from a Michigan fan. I think Florida State secondary room might be the best in the country. When you look at A.Z. Thomas, from what you're hearing out of spring practice, he might be a top 20 pick in the NFL draft. You look on the other side, say Fentrell Cypress, that's another NFL guy that probably could be playing on Sundays in a couple months had he wanted to. You look at the nickelback, Earl Little Jr., I think just kicked Greedy Vance off the team. Now, I was talking to the USC fans the other day and say, Greedy Vance is a ball player. I mean, he's just a ball player that probably plays on most programs across the country, just not the program in Tallahassee. I love this Florida State secondary. I'm going to go Florida State, but again, I think the Florida Gators probably pretty improved in the secondary as well.
In this group, I think Surtain's doing an unbelievable job with this group. I thought they had a really, really good last year, developed really, really well. A.Z. Thomas might be one of the best cornerbacks in the country that we're all not talking about. I like them adding Devontae Brown in that safety spot, but even you look, Shaheem Brown, some of those other guys, they're really good too. So I'm with you. I just think Florida State secondary, it's going to be certainly top 5, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're fighting for that number 1 spot.
I'd be remiss to just shout out Conrad Hussey too. I mean, I've been banging the table for that cat pretty much all spring. I think he's another guy. I just want to get the name shouted out so I don't hear from the Florida State fans in the comments section. No, that'll do it. And again, light us up in the comments section. Call us some names. We love doing this, and you guys make it so much fun to do it in the comments section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it again. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. More importantly, we'd love to hear some other roster battle ideas that you guys have. We love doing the rivalry ones. Appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to you guys later.